Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. Hey, what's up, and welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions and answer them here in video format. A ton of questions to get into, so we're going to just jump into it. And we're going to start with a question from Oink, who says this. Hey, Q, why have the Browns abandoned using Dylan Sampson at all? I know Quincy has been a beast, but I thought Dylan was promising as a receiver out the backfield. I think the issue with Dylan is simple, right? When you really think about it. How do you want to allocate these snaps and who's good at what in that running back room? And I think Dylan Sampson ends up in a situation where he's not good enough at pass blocking to take snaps away from Jerome Ford, but he's certainly not the quality of runner out the backfield that Quincy Judkins is to take snaps away from him. So you end up in a situation where it's hard to play him because Jerome Ford's a better receiver out the backfield, debatably, but certainly 100% a better pass protector in the backfield. 14 is struggling with pass protection on the offensive line. That's going to be important. And that kind of puts him in this odd spot where the Browns have nowhere to really play him. They're not going to sacrifice Quincy Judkins carries to get Dylan Sampson carries because they have identified that Quincy is just a different caliber of running back with the ball in his hands than Dylan. And they might like to get Dylan the ball as a receiver. That leaves some snaps for him, and you saw that in this game. But if they need him to block or need somebody to block, they're going to go with Jerome Ford, who they feel like is comparable as a receiver and much better as a pass protector at this point. He's just at a weird spot to where you can't really play him because he's not good enough at pass protecting, and he needs to get to a point to where his pass protection can keep him on the field. And once he gets there, then I think you'll see a lot more Dylan Sampson. But until he gets there, I think you're not going to see him. S-Lock says, why is there so much harping on Kevin's timeouts during Minnesota's final drive? I feel like the bigger issue was the execution. There were plenty of opportunities to put the game away before the final drive that weren't capitalized on. Yeah, I mean, people are always going to pick these like points that they decide they decide the game or not. When, you know, football's complicated, there are a number of things that can happen that could decide it. People, yeah, you're asking me why is everybody harping on the timeouts? I think some people, have identified in their mind that Kevin is part of the reason why the Browns can't be successful right now, that he's holding the team back. So anything that looks like they can blame it on Kevin, they're going to go for that, and the timeouts are certainly something you blame a coach for. And if you're not happy with how he uses timeouts, then you're going to use that as something to wave against Kevin and say, hey, this is why he has to get fired. Me personally, I did not really have a complaint about how he used the timeouts when it happened, so I'm not going to sit here and be hindsight 2020 and be like, I would have done this, only because I know what else happened in the game. I was perfectly fine with using those timeouts to try to stop the clock. Hell, I was calling the timeouts on stream too, and I think most of y'all were too. So, maybe the one timeout I thought was a little bit questionable. It was the one he took to stop the runoff, but I think there's an explanation there too, right? Like the Browns were in a situation where the Vikings could decide, to run the clock out and go for a field goal to tie the game, or to, score a touchdown and put the Browns in a very adverse situation. There was really no great way to manage the clock in that, and I think betting on your defense was a fine enough way to do it. I wasn't really that upset about it. That being said, it's just my opinion. Somebody else can have a different opinion, and maybe they're right, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I feel pretty confident that, the management of the clock wasn't the biggest issue in the game. I think the biggest issue in the game was, not being able to get first downs on offense in the fourth quarter, which Brian Flores' defense is going to make that difficult. Understand that. But also, your defense not being able to get Minnesota off the field on that final drive. So, there's a lot of things that led to that moment that we can blame or not blame on certain people. But, I think this was a group loss. I think this was a true team loss. I think the team just collectively, coaching staff, players, everybody just did not make the decisions or the plays that they needed to win this game. You know, they got outplayed at the end by better players than Justin Jefferson, and that's just what happened. All right, Yo Griff says, Q, how necessary do you think it is going to be that we get a high wide receiver next year in the draft, free agency or trade market next year? It's going to be very important that the Browns get a wide receiver next year because I think they need a consistent playmaker there. I think Jerry Jeudy is a good wide receiver. He's a fun guy to have on your team, but he's not a number one guy. I think he's a number two guy. I think he's somebody that you can go to for stretches as your one, but you want somebody else who's going to be more reliable throughout the course of the year. We're going to get to the next question, but before I do, I want to thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code WORSTTAKE. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. All right, next question comes from Jacob, who says, why in the world did we not run Ward on Jefferson all game? Feels like it's a no-brainer. I'd maybe understand it if you had Emerson, but as good as Newsome is, he's not the guy to cover Jefferson. Yeah, this was a questionable Jim Schwartz decision. Look, I think, honest to God, the defense came into this game underestimating what it would take to win it. I think it showed all game. The defensive line, specifically, that thought they would have the easiest job, really underwhelmed in this game for the most part. They had some moments where they start to live up to their name, but most of the game, you know, the pressure wasn't there. They weren't playing to the level that they needed to play at, if I'm being honest with you. That being said, like, I also thought that Jim Schwartz was reliant on the idea that they were just going to dominate up front with four guys. It really, like, Jim Schwartz this year, I thought has done a good job disguising pressure, disguising coverages, and, you know, allowing different things to kind of play a role in the Browns defense. And I think he went just straight back to Jim Schwartzism, which is just front four is going to win. We're going to play man. Everything else is going to be, you know, pretty easy to handle. And he thought it would be easy, and it wasn't easy this week. I think he got caught lacking, if I'm being honest with you. And sometimes this happens with Jim Schwartz, where he gets caught lacking a little bit. Need him to come back next week and be strong, because I don't think that this was a well thought out game plan. Like, why wasn't Ward on Jefferson all game? You know, why are we in zone at the end of the game when that's not what we do? All this stuff. Like, you know, again, I don't want to harp on one entity, but I want to make it clear that I blame everybody for this loss. Okay? Everybody should be embarrassed about this. Kevin Stefanski should be embarrassed. Tommy Rees should be embarrassed. Dylan Gabriel should be embarrassed. Everybody should be embarrassed that they did not do what was needed to do to win this game, because it was within every single unit of this team's grasp, right? Everybody had a chance to win this game, offensively or defensively, reasonable chances to win this game. You know, offensively, it's very reasonable to expect that you could close a game out when you get that many opportunities in the fourth quarter. I don't care who you're playing. I get it, it's a Brian Flores defense. I get it that you're not that good, but still, I expect that, right? Defensively, I get it. The offense wasn't doing what they needed to do. But you're one of the best defenses in the NFL, if not the best defense in the NFL, and you're telling me that you can't stop Carson Wentz from going 80 on you in 3 minutes? Like, are you serious? Are you serious right now? You know what I mean? Like, you know what this is like? This is like, let's imagine Kawhi Leonard and Shaq were on a basketball team, and Shaq missed 2 free throws that would have closed the game up at the end of it. And then we went on the other end, and Kawhi Leonard gave up a 3-pointer to Rudy Gobert or some shit like that. And people are like, well, we should be mad at Shaq. He missed the free throws. Or no, we should be mad at Kawhi. He played a great game, but he didn't close out at the end. And I'm like, we can be mad at both. We could be mad. Shaq should make them free throws, but we understand Shaq don't make free throws. Kawhi got to not let Rudy Gobert make a three on him, right? Like it's just what it is, man. Like the Browns defense can't let cooked Carson Wentz go 80 on you at the end of the game. I don't care what the offense was doing to set that up. I don't care. When you're this good of a unit defensively, don't give me this bullshit about, oh yeah, well, the defense, they were actually great. They just didn't know, man. Like, no, I'm sorry. I'm not doing it, dog. If the Browns offense had thrown a bunch of interceptions, I'd be with you. But you were getting good field position starts. They had to go 80 yards downfield. Don't give me this bullshit about how it's okay that they gave up that drive at the end of the game. That's not okay. That's just absolutely not okay for the defense to do. It's not okay for the offense to not do anything for the fourth quarter. And I'm upset. They should be embarrassed about that too. But come on, dog. The defense? Nah. Riley says, would you say that Kevin Stefanski was outcoached in this game? Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, right? Like, I think the offense looked easier for the Minnesota Vikings than it did for the Browns. Also, to be fair to Kevin, the Minnesota Vikings have better horses on offense than the Cleveland Browns, especially a wide receiver, right? They got Justin Jefferson. That's going to change how you defend people, and it's going to make it easy to scheme things open and to do some misdirection stuff. But still, thought that he did a better job activating his playmakers than Kevin has. I thought their offense was much more creative than Kevin's was. Yeah, this is not a good look for Kevin this week, right? Like, you watch Kevin O'Connell play and you like, wow, that guy's making stuff happen with Carson Wentz. You watch his offense with Kevin Stefanski and, there's some stuff that Dylan's doing and the offense is doing. And you're like, okay, yeah, we're making some things happen, but it doesn't feel like it's on the same level as Kevin O'Connell remotely. And I think that's something that we got to kind of like have a deeper conversation about, even if you do think Kevin's a good coach, right? Like, I think there's something to that. Like, I think he has, allowed his fear to stop him from being creative at times. And that has not had the most positive effect on the team overall. Adoptive care, special needs. Shout out to that. That's awesome, right? Like, adoptive care, special needs. Hopefully that's what I think it is, but shout out to that. But shout out to all my adopters out there. All right. I know we didn't play great, but with the shape of the AFC North, does it feel feasible for the Browns to still have a chance to win it, or at least not be last? Not be last, most definitely, right? It's not going to be hard to not be last, but win it. I think Pittsburgh's getting 9 or 10 wins this year. I don't think the Browns are getting 10 wins. So I would say probably not feasible to win the division. Maybe feasible to be second place, though. Tilted Band says this. Anytime we have a lead, Kevin seems to go into super reserved offense, and that seems to fail time and time again. Do you like this play call style, or do you think that Kevin Seat got a little bit hotter? I don't think Kevin Seat's hot. I don't think they're going to fire him anytime soon. Because every time somebody ever suggested, somebody from the woodworks that has sources within the Cleveland Browns front office like adamantly says they're not doing that. So they're not going to fire Kevin anytime soon. I don't also think that like Kevin's style at the end of these games is always super reserved. Like, he does take a lot of risk, right? He goes for it on fourth down a ton. I think with Kevin in this game, he has to let go of the idea that this is 2020 or 20. Yeah, that I think that's the biggest thing that Kevin is having an issue with. Anytime he get a little feeling that it could be like 2020, he does stuff that worked in 2020 that's not going to work in 2025. And it's not because teams have figured it out. It's just because of personnel, right? So at the end of this game, what Kevin tried to do in the fourth quarter of this game is what we saw him do successfully in the Chubb and Hunt days, where he just said to himself, I'm running this ball. It's coming. Stop it, right? And when we had Wyatt Teller in his prime and Jack Conklin in his prime and J.C. Treader and Joe Bitonio in his prime and Jed Wills before he started to stink it all up all the way, then this offensive line was the best unit in football. That was some shit we could do. With the offensive line that we currently employ today, that is not some shit that we can do. I'm sorry. I had to say it. I know I owe you two. That was two of them, right? I'm sorry, I hate to say it, right? And I think that's what Kevin got caught up in the fourth quarter was he saw Quinshawn running the way that Quinshawn was running. He saw the offensive line start to get some momentum going, and he thought to himself, I know what to do here. I'm going to do the same stuff that I did that got me coach of the year in 2020, right? That got us 11 wins in 2020, which is fourth quarter comes around, 4-minute offense. We running this thing. And in parts of the game that worked. But they don't have the offensive line to do that when everybody knows it's going to happen anymore. And I think Kevin needs to adjust to that reality. I think Kevin's belief in this offensive line has been the downfall of this offense, if I'm keeping it real with you, right? Like if I could point to one thing where I'm like, I think his belief in this line has really dragged him down with it, right? And this was a perfect example of it, right? I don't think he's calling those run plays because he's like, oh, Quinshawn's the best running back in the world, which I think he thinks highly of Quinshawn. I think he's calling those plays like I got a plus running back and I got an offensive line that can move people like 2020, but it ain't 2020 no more. Like I think the best thing for Kevin Stefanski is going to be the day that he is removed from this offensive line so he can no longer fall back on that tendency, which I think tends to hold him back as a coach. Like he just needs to accept that we aren't in 2020 anymore. This offensive line is not like that anymore. And you just can't rely on them being like that anymore. It's been a couple of years, right? Like he's just got to accept it. I think he's had a very hard time not trusting Joe Bitonio, not trusting Jack Conklin, right? Like I get these questions. Why do we trust these guys? Because he trusts these guys implicitly and he's not going to give up on them. But I think he needs to start considering that he might have to give up on some of these guys because I think it's held him back. I think it's part of the reason we haven't been as serious about rebuilding the offensive line over the last few years and why we're in the predicament that we're in, because I think Kevin just has an undying belief in this offensive line to be what they were at the beginning of his run. And he's got to accept that it's just not there anymore. I think that's the biggest thing that holds him back and why it feels like his offense is super reserved. He's doing the same stuff that he did in 2020 and to a point 2023 that got him coach of the year. The issue, especially when it comes to the stuff that he wants to do from 2020, he ain't got that line no more. It ain't even about the plays being known. These are plays that everybody's known about for decades, right? Like it being figured out is such an overrated element of it. It's just last when they ran it in 2020, they had the personnel that it didn't matter. We can execute at a high enough level. They're just not there yet. When everybody knows we're going to run, we're not a good enough football team to run. And I think he's had a hard time accepting that. And his play calling sometimes reflects that. That's my take on it. Let me know what y'all think about that. Because I haven't heard a lot of people go there. Usually it's just, oh, Kevin sucks at play calling. He's terrible. He's reserved. And there's really no like analysis behind it. I'm at least trying to offer you some analysis behind it. Take it for what it is, right? But that's my analysis on it. I think he just cannot let go of the 2020 offensive line not being there anymore. And that's been a huge hold up for him. Ian says, hey, Q, is there a way of salvaging the O-line at this point? Or are we just going to have to wait until the draft, the offseason, to completely rebuild it? This goes back to the point I'm making earlier, right? Like, you know, are there going to be parts of this offensive line that we're going to assume right now that they're going to get rid of and move on from, that they're going to have an attachment to, right? Like keeping Jack Conklin, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world as long as you prepare for him to be injured. Wyatt Teller, you could keep Wyatt Teller as well, but like, you know, you got to let go of Joel because he's going to retire. You're going to have to get a new left tackle. Are you willing to let go of Ethan Posick? I think it's time to let go of Ethan Posick, right? Like, are you willing to let that one go? Doesn't seem like they're willing to let that one go at this point. But yeah, you know, as far as salvaging this offensive line right now for the rest of the season, I think getting KT Levingston out there and putting Cam Robinson out there, you know, once you give him time to get acclimated to the new offense in a couple of weeks, will improve the offensive line situation. But if we're talking about fixing the offensive line and getting the offensive line to where it needs to be, yeah, you're going to have to wait till the draft in the offseason to do that. You know what I mean? But that's it for the questions. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.